Welcome to episode 228 of Girl Take the Lead, where each week we explore womanhood and leadership. And I'm your host, Yo Canny. Nejat Abdurahman, Millennial, is a keynote speaker, the author of The Art of Managing Up, and founder of N-BAC, a business advisory and consulting firm that helps organizations and leaders transform the way they lead. She is a certified leadership and emotional intelligence coach and DISC practitioner who enables organizational growth and transformation through learning and leadership development. A continuous learner herself, Nejat loves to spark passion by learning and help people unlock their potential. And we shared so many of those same things that made our conversation just so delightful. Here's some things you'll learn in this episode, including how to manage up with integrity, about mobilizing your boss, self awareness and self leadership, and the role of emotional intelligence in leadership. I don't know about you, but I was really bad at managing up and bought into all the myths that Najat talks about. Enjoy the episode. Here you go. Oh, Nishat, thank you for coming to Girl Take the Lead. We are so excited that we're going to have this conversation about managing up, which was always very difficult for me. So, so this is so good because maybe it can help a lot of people. So thank you for coming on the show.
Amazing. Thank you for having me here. It's such a pleasure to be here and to have a conversation with you.
Yeah. Maybe you can start by introducing yourself to our listeners and tell them a little bit about why you wrote the book and what it's about.
Sure. Okay, so my name is Nejat Abdurahman. I'm in Maryland, joining from Maryland. I wrote the book because one, I lead an organization called N-BAC, and we focus on leadership development. But this my first book, came because when we think of leadership, usually we think about, how we can be great to leader to our subordinates, how we can manage our resources and all. But what is very important, but often not talked about, is how about the leadership leading up with your manager, the executives in the organization, because success does not really depend on only on being the most effective employee or leader you can be. How you manage that relationship with your boss, and how you become really the CEO of your career. To think about where am I going in my career was one of the most important things. Personally, one that I felt this was this was something I needed many years ago. But also, anytime I lead a conference or have a conversation, this has been the topic that resonated with most leaders. And I was speaking at a big conference, so my goal was maybe if I can get this book ready for that conference. Didn't happen, but at least it's ready here now, and so that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah. It's almost like taboo, like the subject a little bit. I think that it isn't something that we're super comfortable talking about. And I wonder what stands in our way, especially as women. Like, what are some of those aspects? I know you covered them in the book. So I think our listeners would be interested in that.
I want to start by what you mentioned first. It's almost like a taboo, right? Because when we think of managing up, sometimes, like actually for most people, what comes to mind is, oh, I don't want to be kissing as my boss, or just like be friendly just so I can make my boss happy, just do something that I don't like. And most people think of those things and they say, oops, I absolutely don't want to do any of that. And you know what? I wouldn't want to do that too. Anyone, like someone with integrity, wouldn't want to just be please their boss despite what they're thinking inside. But that's not what managing up is. So one thing that actually prevents people from managing up is the myth associated with it, which is exactly what you said. Thinking that it's tooting your own horn, arrogantly sharing what you have done and have it done, sometimes even just pleasing your boss at the expense of just putting someone under the bus. But that's not what managing up is. So having a clear definition of what managing up is, and you can do it with integrity, has nothing to do with tooting your own horn. That's not what managing up is. So having a clear understanding of what managing up is. But the second one that really prevents people from managing up is actually naivety.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, unfortunately, we all think that if I do my work really well, if I excelled at what I do, my boss and everyone else is going to notice. The numbers are going to show. Data is going to speak for itself. Unfortunately, hard work and the data doesn't speak for itself. And especially in the corporate setting now, where everyone, including our bosses, executives, CEOs, they're so busy focusing on what they're doing. The data, like what you see on a day-to-day basis, how much problem you've solved, how much you've accomplished, the return on investment for the ROI
Mm-hmm.
for anything that you have done, what you created, the value added, is not 100% clear. And so when we really, head down, do the hard work, and expect that, it's going to show, my boss is going to notice, I'm going to get the promotion, I'm going to
Yeah.
get the raise, or someone is going to notice me and give me opportunity. None of that happens, right? So that is the second thing that really prevents people from
Yeah. I
yeah.
think sometimes too in an organization, you are as for example, I'll just say as a marketing person or a salesperson, your work is external. You're not, your boss isn't seeing you day to day and what you achieve day to day. And I think that can also, when you're hoping that somebody will read your mind and appreciate your work, that external validation, but they don't know what to validate. I mean, it's just like they don't know.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was always kind of frustrating because then when it would come time for performance appraisals, you would do your self evaluation, and your manager had very little awareness of all that
Exactly.
you've accomplished.
Yeah. And sometimes actually it's a blessing if you're having that conversation during your performance evaluation. What happens in most cases for most people, and for my clients at least, and this has also happened to me, is they're doing this amazing work and they're expecting that they're, adding value, everyone appreciates it. And then let's say you're in marketing manager and the role just right above you, director position opens up. It's almost obvious to you that you're going to be the next person. And all of a sudden you hear someone else is hired from outside and you're like, wait, I thought I was the right person in the pipeline and just like ready and
Yeah.
contributing this much. And the other thing is sometimes this actually happened to me. You're doing, you're thinking you're doing amazing work. And actually you are doing, not just thinking, you're actually, doing amazing work. In my case, it was a training department. And then one day, all of a sudden, you're having a conversation at the company I was working at. The CEO says, are we really getting any return on investment for the training department? Maybe we should shut it down. It's like, what? And then you're like completely the opposite of what you thought.
Yeah.
And so for most people, they feel unappreciated,
Yeah.
unrecognized, unvalued. And what happens is, you know what? They just either give up and they're just disengaged at the company, or they go ahead and find another opportunity. And it's
Yeah.
really a lose-lose for the company and for the individual. And so, but when someone manages up and they're actively and proactively sharing how much they're contributing, everyone knows what they're doing and the return on investment, and then you get the appreciation, the promotion,
Yeah.
all of that that comes with it. So
There, I want to talk about another one that you have in your book, which is the difference between confidence and humility, because as a marketer, I know that we had this thing going around that would say something about, you know, we're pretty bad about marketing ourselves. We could market a brand and, and a business, but marketing ourselves and letting people know, what we've accomplished was always difficult.
It's always difficult, and especially I would say for women, I think.
Yeah.
Majority. And I think, what happens is, and this happens to many of my women clients, they've done an amazing job, and someone comes and says, you guys have, by you guys, I mean like you and your team have accomplished this great things. She's like, no, that's what I'm here for. There's something called like self-erasure in the name of humility, right? You're like, oh yeah, that's what I'm here for. No, I didn't do anything.
No, not
And
really.
then there's
Anyway.
this other group of people who are incredibly high achieving.
Yeah.
And what happens is you achieve one thing, you're not even thinking about that. You're thinking about already what's next, right?
Mm.
You have really high standard that you're like, you achieve this thing, but you know that this could be better the next time. Now, granted, if you're always learning and if you're like someone who wants to learn, grow, you're always thinking how you can do better. And
Yeah.
so for anything that you've done, you'll say, this was great, that could be better, because you're thinking about what you can
Yeah.
improve. And when that happens is you speak that loudly and say, no, we could double that number, right? And so you're like completely erasing yourself,
Yeah.
the name of that higher achievement. And I 100% agree with you. Sometimes if it's for people, we do it. We recognize them. We say, oh, so and so has achieved so much. We're really gonna promote them, right? We promote their work and how much they're accomplishing when it comes to us.
Yeah. Well,
So
I like what you say in the book too, as the example, something like, I'm proud of what we've accomplished. And we
yes.
did it as a team, and the team did blah, 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 blah. Like I thought that was
Yeah.
so a nice example because so many times I know for me, I would go to promoting the team and assume that you all knew that I was leading the team.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. I think you're talking about the two extremes that I've had where there's some leaders who don't even mention their team. I accomplished this, I led this and this.
Yeah.
And everyone is like, oh my gosh, we all put so much hard work and you've completely erased us. And then there's on the other extreme of leaders that I see mostly who are completely promoting everything that the team has done and they forget themselves.
Yeah.
But there's always that middle ground of like, yeah, you can recognize how much work your team has done, but that doesn't mean you should just completely erase yourself as well.
Yeah. I'm thinking we could learn from sports a little bit here because if I think about like I love football, basketball, all of those, and they have stars on the team, and they're a
Hmm.
team.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the stars don't, they'll say, yeah, I had this kind of shooting going on. You know, I want to get better, but it was pretty good that night, whatever. But
Yeah.
then, they bring in the team and they lift the team up.
Exactly.
And I think that's probably a nice way to see it. I never saw it that way though.
Yeah.
I got to be honest, as a senior leader, I was always putting myself in the background.
Yeah. And the problem with that is it's not that you won't necessarily get only the recognition, but remember if you're going to even for your team, your department, if you're going to create that impact, you're going to have the social capital. So erasing yourself doesn't really benefit anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, Najat. It's just going to feel like I'm going to the therapist and I'm kind of healing all of these wounds with the next question, too, because
Sure.
I can
Mhm.
see, like, man, I wish I'd had this so much sooner, that I understood more about my own naivete and hesitations. But you talk about in chapter 5, mobilizing your boss
Mhm.
to adopt and align yourself with them. And I'm thinking, yeah, but what if you really don't like your boss and you really don't want to align with them? We got any advice for that? I know somebody who's in that situation right now, so I'm bringing it.
So I on chapter 5 when I think when I talk about like aligning your work with the boss. So there's two things. There's the aligning like the work that you do. And the reason I, focus a lot on that chapter is like you could be working on something you think is important, but is that thing also important for your boss? And is that thing also adding value to the organization? Right.
Mhm.
So always, instead of just thinking, okay, these are my priorities. So I'm going to work on project one, then project two, then project three, to kind of like reframe that and say, okay, which one is priority for the organization and which one is priority for the boss so that you can align
Mhm.
and ensure that the work that you're doing is also the work that matters the most. That
Mhm.
way, your hard work is adding value and it's appreciated, and it's also a win-win for you and also for your boss. But in terms of like having a productive working relationship, if there's one thing that is absolutely required for, growth and achievement within the organization, it's the relationship that you have with your boss. And I
Mhm.
like to tell people there's a great relationship and then there's a productive relationship.
Mhm.
Productive working relationship versus great relationship. Now, you might ideally you want to like the people you work with, right? You want to like them, you want to come to work with them, but there's some people where you just can't see eye to eye, right?
Mhm.
In most cases, I would say, and is this situation based, so you're gonna assess if that's workable, but usually a communication gap and like communication difference
Mhm.
is usually what creates this kind of relationship. And so there's this specific thing that you can apply is really think about your communication style and then also see the communication style of your boss and then see how you can create this rule that we've always heard of the rule of like the golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated. And that is great when it comes to, integrity, values, and stuff like that. But we're all very different. Like I'm different than my boss. The way I communicate is very different from the way my boss likes to communicate. And so what I say is like for professionals, especially when it comes to connection, just drop that rule and use another rule that's platinum rule, which is communicate with others the way they would like to communicate, not the way you want to be communicated. And this is like differences. I don't know if you've ever taken DISC, an assessment that tells you whether you're a direct people person versus you're focused on task. That's an absolutely an assessment that I highly recommend people take.
Mhm.
And when
Mhm.
you know how you communicate, and then open up that conversation with your boss to say, how would you like me to communicate with you?
Mhm.
And a great way to do that is just during your one-on-one meeting.
Yeah.
You're assigning work, and you can say, how frequently do you want me to give you updates? Would you prefer email updates or in person or over the phone? Because different people are different, right? I've
Yeah.
heard a specific case in one of my clients. She would send emails requesting for a meeting. The boss would keep on canceling and canceling and canceling. It's just like, I don't really think he likes me. I don't think we can work together.
Right.
And then what happens is she recognized because he's busy, he actually prefers emails. She started just sending simple emails with updates. These are the points. These are my questions. He would get back to her even if it's at night, whenever he finds the time. And then that relationship became a productive working relationship.
Mhm. I think that's a great distinction that you bring. That the difference there between, you know, like I can see that by being productive, you're taking the kind of emotion out of it, kind of like the expectation out of it, and understanding where they're coming from probably a little bit better.
Yeah, understand. Practicing like perspective taking, seeing where they're
Mhm.
coming from.
Mhm.
Again, if there's other type of, toxic behaviors involved where the boss is just emotionally maybe abusive, they shout or they're like dismissing the person, that's something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
But in most cases, just a communication, just having the one-on-one communication. In fact, in the book I share, I ask people to create a how to work with me document just so they know who they are and how they prefer to communicate.
Yeah.
And I recommend that people create a how to work with my boss document and actually ask them what's the best way to communicate with you? What's the best way to update them? What's the best way to, what's their leadership style?
Mm.
So that you can adjust and work with them. And if you're lucky enough, your boss might say that, but we can't really rely on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also, I think what's great in your book is that you have reflection exercises through your chapters, which I think is great for all of us whenever we're kind of absorbing, what you're talking about. Because, what are your thoughts there about self awareness and leadership?
Mhm.
It's got to help us to see ourselves better, those kinds of reflection questions you have and
Yeah. Yeah.
exercises.
Self-awareness is just the I always say self-leadership is the foundation of a great leadership. If you want to be a great leader, it starts with leading yourself. So the
Mm.
self-leadership. And then I say self-leadership, the foundation of self-leadership is self-awareness. And self-awareness is really knowing who you are, what your goals are, but also what are your strengths? What are you uniquely talented at? What's your passion? What brings, what gives you energy?
Mhm.
And at the same time, there's also your tendencies, like how do you communicate? How do you lead? So having that clear understanding of who you are will give you a really great foundation, one to lead yourself, but then two to create ideally great, but if not, a productive working relationship with your boss and your coworkers
Yeah.
and
And
everyone
how
else.
does emotional intelligence play a role there?
Oh my gosh.
It's big,
Emotional
huh?
intelligence, I feel like, is a lifetime work, right? For anyone. It is one of the skills that I feel like is a lifetime skill beneficial to your life, to your relationship outside of work, relationship inside the work, how you lead and how you show up in the world. Because
Mhm.
it's really, emotional intelligence is really having the knowledge of your own emotions and regulating them, understanding others' emotions, and leading with empathy and compassion. And so when we develop our emotional intelligence, the key thing, and I title the book Being the CEO of Your Career, if you're really going to be the CEO of your career, you can't be driven by your emotions, right? You
Mhm.
can't let fear stop you from doing things, or you can't let anger bring about the type of leader you don't want to be. So these are, knowing your emotions, how they affect you, and then instead of being driven by the emotions, kind of like understanding them but deciding and regulating and how you want to act.
Right.
And at the same time, if you're a leader, you got to assess the situation, the organization you're at or the people that you're leading, how are they feeling? If everyone is feeling some sort of fear and you come and share something that's again going to be fearful and everyone shuts down, you're not leading, right? Just understanding how people are feeling and showing empathy and leading them through that is again a superpower. So emotional intelligence, I think, is a topic that every leader and everyone actually, not just leaders,
Yeah.
everyone. I also think emotional intelligence is incredibly beneficial for women leaders, especially because sometimes we're going to be the ones receiving maybe some unwelcome comments in meeting. Maybe we're dismissed. Maybe, maybe we're undermined
Just
in
a
like
few
high
times.
pitch meetings. So when we have situations like that, so for example, let's say a woman can be in a boardroom meeting where she's the only one and someone dismisses her, what emotion did she feel? What if is she then going to feel like dismissed and not say anything? Or is she going to say, wow, okay, but I'm going to be brave enough to say something? Or am I angrily going to show emotion or should I hold on and how should I act? So I feel like it also plays a big role for women leaders, especially given what we experience.
Yeah, I can say I made a few mistakes there. I think anger. where the what was what got triggered right away, and I would try and control my voice and speak in a way that was like
Tell me more.
just and then leave the room. Oh, and maybe close the door a little too noisily, as I was leaving. And I did
Okay.
get in trouble for that. But
Okay.
there was more to it that was going on. I mean, it was obviously a situation in that meeting where, there was a bully, but I didn't know how to handle that. I didn't
Yeah.
know how to process that. And I can see now that, I could have done it a lot better. And yeah, but it does take that awareness and it takes that intelligence to
Yeah.
understand that, oh, you're triggered. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. You need to take a moment here. You need to take a breath. You need to say, you know what? I'm going to leave the room for a few minutes and I'll come right back.
Exactly.
Give yourself that time to adjust.
Yep,
I just
exactly.
wish I had done it
Because
myself.
sometimes you can have a really great point, but if you share it with that sense of like anger, you might not be taken seriously, right?
Mm,
Or you might do something that you regret. Or it might bring about the type of leader that you don't want to be, might shout on someone. Again, you might see a bully, maybe things are not doing right. Can I address them in a different way? So
yeah.
yeah, the ability to say, okay, right now I'm incredibly angry, and instead of hitting send on this email, I'm gonna wait.
I'm going to give it
Go
10
go
hours.
get water or go get coffee or
Yeah.
breathe, come back, sit
Yeah.
down,
Yeah.
think about it. So
Definitely.
yeah, that definitely requires the awareness of our emotions.
Yeah. Well, I know that you call your book Managing Up, but you do talk in the book about managing sideways and managing down, kind of having a holistic viewpoint.
Yeah. So at my company, actually, the managing up is just one of the focus, because that's not just leadership is not just managing up. It's a holistic approach of managing down, which means being the great leader with the team that you work with, being able to empower them, unleash their potential, recognize them, appreciate them, give them feedback that is going to be accepted. So being a great leader to your subordinates is one thing. And then, of course, managing up, just how can you manage your boss, your, executives, everyone that's higher up. And there's this term of difference between management and leadership, by the way. Management, leadership is for people. Managing is includes resources, right? And so that's why I say managing up, but becoming a great leader. So because when you manage up, it's not just working with the people, but also looking at your resources, your goal, how do you achieve them, and then of course there's the sideways. So managing up, down, and across.
Mm,
That becomes holistic, but also then there's another aspect of holistic leadership that we do is leading yourself, leading your people, and then leading the organization.
mm,
And it becomes a great, complete sense of, yeah, you can be great to your subordinates. How about your relationship with your boss? And how about the organization and others that you're leading?
mhm,
And so I focus on, there's like trainings that you do to acquire the skill, and then assessments to really help you with your awareness, and then being coached to really target the individual, topics or, areas of concern or areas that are specifically interesting to you to work on. So
mhm, mhm.
that's the holistic approach that we focus on.
Well, I so appreciate so many of the distinctions that you've shared with us and that were in your book. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with especially in like, do you see anything generational? Like, are our younger generations better at this than I was?
So I let me start because you said like, is there anything you want to add? I love the the title of your podcast, Girl Lead, right? Which is
Yeah.
amazing. It's what happens is when we're young and really entering the workforce, and we think of ourselves a lot. And we're not really thinking that we're thinking about ourselves a lot, but we always say, oh, I don't have this much experience. Oh, I'm really young. Oh my gosh, everyone in this room are men and I'm the only woman. Or would say I'm the only this and that. And sometimes we think about everything that we do not have instead of just focusing on what it is that we can do. And so this was something, and that's where imposter syndrome or lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem
Mhm.
comes, especially when the workforce in the early stages, someone is going to say, oh, I don't have that much experience. But in any stage of our lives, there's something that we can contribute, right? In the early stages, we're learning, we're exploring. It doesn't mean that we say I'm an expert and I'm going to keep this way, but instead of focusing on ourselves and holding ourselves back by saying I don't have this or that, one thing that was incredibly helpful to me that was given by my mentor was, instead of thinking about yourself, just think about the work that you're doing, the purpose, the mission, right? So whatever it is that you're involved in, let's say you're involved in this podcast and you're creating this amazing platform for people to learn from different people, right?
Mhm.
And instead of saying, who am I to provide this to people, just focus on why you're doing what you're doing. And when you focus on that, all of that pressure that you used to feel, I'm not enough, I'm not this, I'm not that, is gone. It dissipates
Mhm.
because you're not thinking about yourself. So that was one thing that, wow, that was really helpful. And it's
Mhm.
helpful everywhere because everyone feels imposter syndrome. Everyone is gonna, I mean, I feel like, who am I to be on this podcast? Who am I to write this book? Who am I to do this? Who am I to do that? Whatever, insert whatever we're doing. And instead of focusing on that, just focusing on the learning aspect and then on why we're doing what we're doing, the impact that we want to create, the help that we're gonna, that we're providing to other people and for ourselves, like that, we're
Mhm.
learning. So in terms of generations, that's what I think. I feel like the younger ones are going to be thinking more of like, I'm not, who am I to do this? Maybe I'm too young. But just stop thinking about that and focus on why you're doing what you're doing. Generationally, it's very different. I feel like the younger ones, just as much as there's aspect of I'm not enough, or maybe I don't have enough experience, I've also seen how they really care about purpose. And so when they're in the organization that they love, they just thrive.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's what I've noticed.
Yeah. Such good. So good. So many good thoughts there. So how can I or what how can our listeners and viewers follow you and find your book?
For anyone who wants to follow me, I'm on LinkedIn. So Nejat Abdurahman, you should find me there. I do post regularly. I'm very active there, so send me a message. Um, People can book 30 minutes discussion. I'm very open. I have my Calendly link there. And for anyone who wants to buy the book, they can buy it on Amazon.
Okay. Very good. So my darling, what would you tell your 20 something self today?
My 20 something self's not necessarily related to leadership or anything, but I would just say um, increase on self love.
Oh.
That's the one thing that I feel like we think about other people, we think about other things, but we don't really give too much focus on self-love and acceptance. And so I would say just focus on self-love a lot.
Mm. Just have this impression of giving myself a big hug.
Oh, yes.
You're doing good, girl. That's all right.
Oh, yep. Yeah.
And then, oh, did you get a chance to go to our website and check out any of our cards and gifts? Anything that you
I
saw there?
did. I did. I actually was gonna I saw a card that says you're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Okay, I wanna buy this thing and give it to every woman that I know."
Well, I
'Cause they're all
definitely
amazing, and sometimes, they forget, they're just thinking about, like, the other thing, the next thing coming up that they are like, "You know what? I'll buy that one." But yeah.
well, it's my distinct pleasure to send that one to you, so you don't need to buy it,
Oh,
but I think, we all kind of need those messages sometimes to be lifted up and,
yeah.
um,
It is, it is
something
amazing.
very clear about that message. Like, there's no
Which one is your favorite? I'm curious.
oh, that's so hard for me. I'll tell you the most popular one
Mhm.
is the butterfly.
Interesting,
With
okay.
brave wings she flies. A lot of people like that one.
I love that.
And, I've had some guests come on the show and actually help me design new ones because they had a point of view on them. And so I have a couple there, and I have one that I'm thinking about doing, um, because sometimes I'll hear something and I'll go, "Oh my god, that is so important to tell people."
Yeah.
And, it's so fun to give it to somebody to just say, "Oh, you know what? You are amazing."
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And I used to I loved butterflies. Like at home, I used to have so many things like butterfly arts, and it's
Oh,
just so beautiful, the change and the
yeah.
beauty and the flying. It's expressed like freedom and stuff to me. So it's really, really cool that you do this. I love what you do.
No, thank you. I tried and really listen to what our guests have to say so that, it kind of informs what you see there. So sometimes they're funny,
Yeah,
sometimes they're serious, it
yeah, yeah.
depends. But thank you so much for joining us today. It was such a pleasure. And I'm quite serious that I wish I had these distinctions when I was early in my career. So you're helping our young generations just understand more about these myths that are out there.
I love it's so great to hear that from you because when I wrote the book, that's what I said. I wish someone gave me this book when I just graduated from college or when I just first became a manager. So I really, really hope, someone, especially in their early careers, would pick up this book and
Yeah.
learn the differences. It makes a huge difference.
Okay. Well, thanks again for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening today, and we sure hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a comment wherever you listen to your podcasts. Tell a friend about us. Join our public Facebook group, Girl Take the Lead, or visit our website, girltaketheleadpod.com. We also have a YouTube channel where your subscription would be appreciated. Once you're on YouTube, search at Girl Take the Lead. And we're also on YouTube Music and Spotify, where you can find a video of this episode. Some of my favorite quotable moments were self leadership is the foundation of great leadership, and the foundation of self leadership is self awareness. Then self awareness is really knowing who you are, your goals, strengths, talents, passion, what gives you energy, and tendencies about how you communicate. And emotional intelligence is a lifetime skill. It's having the knowledge of our own emotions and regulating them and understanding others and leading with empathy and compassion. And the last one, I really like this distinction she made. Leadership is for people. Managing includes resources. Mm. Here are 3 episode takeaways. 1, when we think of managing up, there are myths associated with it, including we're arrogant or being out of integrity. We also think if we just do our work, data will speak for itself and others will see the value add we bring. Mm. When someone manages up and actively sharing what is being contributed, new opportunities open up. Mm. 2, There are two extremes of leaders. One, totally promotes themselves, or two, focus on the team at the loss of personal accomplishments. That tended to be mine. But Nejat told us that the in between is to do both. 3, make sure your hard work is aligned with the organization and your boss so your work is adding value and appreciated. Nejat makes the distinction between a great and productive relationship with your boss. When having difficulty with your boss, think about the different communication styles and remember to ask how they would like to be communicated to so that you can have a more productive relationship. Great, I thought, idea. Never did it myself, but it sounds like a good one. Our next episode will feature our guest, Madison Kosh. She's the Senior Director of Program and Training at Girl Scouts, Heart of Central California. A dedicated mom of 2, she is passionate about championing girls' ambition and creating meaningful group experiences. She is committed to equipping girls with the skills and confidence to navigate the world, find their voice, and create lasting change in their communities. So please join us again and talk to you soon. Bye.